Government corruption has never been more prevalent or caused more harm. It's why extremism is on the rise. It's why the financial gap between the haves and have-nots has never been wider. And it's why our planet is at risk of an extinction level tragedy. That's why I need your help to keep exposing the truth about the rot on both sides of the aisle. Become a supporter or a friend of the show today by clicking on the coffee link in the description box below. Friends of the show join me on a Zoom hangout once a month, and you guys can ask me any questions you want, and I can get to know you better. But the most important reason to help is to keep the show alive. Together, we can and will save our country and our planet. Thanks in advance and enjoy the show. Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. I have some updates to share about modified charges against some of Trump's Capitol insurrectionists. It's time for an episode of Where Are They Now?
Matthew Bledsoe was arrested.
Patrick Montgomery was in court.
Jonathan Manapa will stay in federal custody.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
So first up are Proud Boys members, Daniel Scott and Christopher Worrell. The men were both arrested last year. They were both indicted as co-defendants. That was on various felony and misdemeanor charges. So those charges have now been dismissed, and a superseding indictment was just filed recently. Daniel Scott has now been indicted by a grand jury on charges of obstructing an official proceeding, entering a restricted building or grounds, disorderly conduct in a restricted building or grounds, 2 counts of physical violence, 2 counts of civil disorder, and 2 counts of assaulting or resisting officers. Christopher Worrell has now been indicted by a grand jury on charges of obstructing an official proceeding, entering a restricted building or grounds with a dangerous or deadly weapon, disorderly conduct in a restricted building or grounds with a deadly or dangerous weapon, physical violence in a restricted building or grounds with a dangerous or deadly weapon, physical violence on Capitol grounds, civil disorder, and assaulting officers with a dangerous or deadly weapon. Now, based on what we've seen and based on the federal sentencing guidelines, even if they're convicted, it's unlikely these guys are going to do more than 5 to 7 years, which I find to be ridiculous, but I'm just trying to keep it real with you guys. So that's where that stands. Next up is an Air Force veteran named Christopher Grider. Grider is one of the few people who actually turned himself into the FBI. And in mid-June, he was also hit with a superseding indictment. This was charging him with 3 felonies and 6 misdemeanors. So Grider is now charged with civil disorder, obstructing an official proceeding, destruction of government property over $1,000, entering a restricted building, 2 counts of disorderly conduct, 2 counts of physical violence, and parading in a Capitol. Grider's attorney told the reporters that these charges are nonsensical. The attorney said that, there's people who did far more than Grider. They bragged about it online, and, they aren't charged with felonies as he is. He also said that they've rejected a plea deal. The plea deal would have required him to plead guilty to a felony. And the attorney said, we would consider a misdemeanor plea, but we're not going to go for a felony. So here's the deal. This guy, I think, is playing with fire. He was seen on video handing a helmet to that Trump lunatic who used it to bash in the glass on the speaker's lobby doors. Ashley Babbitt later climbed through that opening after that glass was smashed. Would she still be alive had he not done that? Had he not handed that helmet to that lunatic? We'll never know, but that's on him. He's going to have to live with that. What I know for sure is that January 6 defendants who opt for jury trials have all been found guilty, and they've all been convicted on every single count. I also know his judge is Colleen Kolar-Kotelly. She's been one of the toughest judges. She's been one of the tougher January 6 judges. So, this guy is facing up to 40 years behind bars. And even though the federal sentencing guidelines are much lower, he could still be looking at upwards of 4 to 5 years. If he's convicted of obstructing an official proceeding, he could be in there for a handful of years. And he's self-employed. He has a wife and kids. I'm not an attorney, but given the facts and who the judge is, I think he's getting bad advice. And I also think, he, like so many others, they're watching and they're reading nothing but right-wing news. These Trump TV, Trump radio, Trump podcasts, they make these defendants vulnerable, in my opinion, to prison time, because these people have no idea how bad it's going. They have no idea that their fellow January 6th defendants have been absolutely annihilated in jury trials. All of their news sources are steering clear. They don't report it. They only report the good things. Oh, when a charge here or a charge there is dropped. That's all they report. You know how I know? Because I read it. I look at it. I know exactly what they're telling them. Anyway, that's on him. He's going to have to figure it out. But the final story about an amended charge is about the Oath Keepers. So they've been charged with seditious conspiracy, as you guys likely know. There was an amended indictment that was recently filed. So it's not a superseding indictment. It was just amended. And what it does is it provides the Justice Department with a greater chance of conviction. So the new text that was added to the previous indictment states that the Oath Keepers coordinated their travel, they coordinated their equipment, as well as their transportation of firearms to a hotel outside of DC to, quote, answer Rhodes' call to take up arms at Rhodes' direction. And then the new filing also removed two members of the Oath Keepers. That's Joshua James and Brian Ulrich. Those two, as you guys probably recall, they've already pleaded guilty. They're currently cooperating with the prosecutors, so they were taken off. In addition, there was also an amendment to the complaint which levies a new allegation against Oath Keepers leader Stuart Rhodes. The feds now say that Rhodes aided and abetted in the destruction of evidence because they say that he was encouraging his members to delete documents and photos and any communications and so forth. So not good for Mr. Rhodes. It's not looking good. And it couldn't really happen to a nicer guy. Just ask his children. So anyway, guys, I will let you know when I hear more. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care. I'll talk with you soon.